Julius Caesar did not rise in a peaceful world. The late Roman Republic was violent, unstable, and addicted to conquest. Generals were celebrities, armies were loyal to men rather than the state, and victory was measured not only in territory but in terror. Caesar understood this better than anyone. From the moment he marched into Gaul, modern France, and beyond, he wasn't just fighting enemies. He was sending a message to Rome, to rivals, and to history itself. That message was simple: resist me and I will erase you. The Gallic Wars are often framed as a defensive campaign, a necessary action to protect Rome's borders. Caesar himself wrote the main source for these wars, presenting his actions as reasonable, restrained, even merciful. But when you read between the lines, or compare his accounts with archaeology and later historians, a different picture emerges, one of calculated brutality on a scale that shocked even hardened Romans. Take the Helvetii, for example. This Celtic tribe attempted to migrate through Roman-controlled territory. Caesar claimed they were a threat, a justification convenient enough to launch a full-scale war. When he defeated them, he didn't simply send them away. According to his own numbers, hundreds of thousands were killed or captured. Survivors were forced to march back to their burned homeland and rebuild, not out of mercy, but as a warning. Rome could destroy you and then make you live among the ashes. Then there were the Usipetes and Tencteri, two Germanic tribes who crossed the Rhine seeking land. They sent envoys to negotiate. Caesar agreed to talks, then used the negotiations to delay them while positioning his troops. When his cavalry clashed with theirs, Caesar declared the talks broken and launched a surprise attack on their camp. This wasn't a battlefield of warriors. It was filled with families, children, and elders. Roman soldiers slaughtered indiscriminately. Ancient sources describe people drowning in rivers while trying to escape, others cut down while begging for mercy. Even some Roman senators were horrified when news reached Rome. Caesar defended himself, and the matter was quietly dropped. As Caesar pushed deeper into Gaul, his tactics grew harsher. Whole towns were destroyed to make examples. At Avaricum, after a long siege, Roman troops were unleashed. Nearly the entire population was massacred. Caesar claimed discipline broke down, but he did nothing to stop it. Out of tens of thousands, only a handful survived. The message spread faster than any army: surrender early or face annihilation. One of the most chilling episodes came during the siege of Uxellodunum. The defenders resisted fiercely, hoping to inspire rebellion elsewhere. Caesar could not allow that. When the town finally fell, he ordered the hands of all surviving defenders cut off. They were left alive, mutilated, and sent away. This was psychological warfare at its most extreme. Caesar wanted living reminders walking through Gaul, proof of what defiance earned you. The Roman concept of mercy was never what we think it is today. Mercy was a political tool, granted when useful, withdrawn when fear was more effective. Caesar mastered this balance. He could spare a defeated enemy and parade his generosity, or he could annihilate a population and let terror do the work of future legions. In Gaul, terror often won. Slavery followed conquest like a shadow. Entire tribes were sold in markets, men, women, and children separated forever. Caesar's wars flooded Rome with slaves, crashing prices and enriching those connected to him. This economic incentive rarely gets mentioned in heroic retellings, but it mattered. War paid, and Caesar's campaigns paid exceptionally well. By the end of the Gallic Wars, millions were dead or displaced. Ancient figures are debated, but even conservative estimates suggest staggering losses. Gaul was transformed, not just conquered. Its cultures were broken, its resistance crushed so thoroughly that future revolts were rare and swiftly ended. Rome celebrated, Caesar celebrated, triumphs were held, speeches made, and the blood was washed from the narrative. But Caesar's brutality didn't end in Gaul. When civil war erupted between him and Pompey, the violence turned inward. Romans killing Romans was always more disturbing than slaughtering foreigners, yet Caesar crossed that line without hesitation. After crossing the Rubicon, there was no turning back. In Spain, Greece, Egypt, and Africa, Caesar fought fellow citizens. While he often claimed clemency, there were moments when ruthlessness prevailed. Cities that resisted were punished. Soldiers loyal to Pompey were executed after surrender in some cases, despite promises of safety. Caesar knew mercy could win loyalty, but fear ensured obedience. One particularly grim episode occurred after the Battle of Thapsus in North Africa. Thousands of enemy soldiers attempted to surrender. Accounts describe Caesar's troops slaughtering them regardless. Whether Caesar lost control or allowed it to happen remains debated, but responsibility ultimately rested with him. The battlefield became a killing ground long after the outcome was decided. Caesar's supporters later emphasized his acts of forgiveness, sparing senators, pardoning rivals. And it's true, he often did. But this selective mercy served a purpose. It portrayed him as a benevolent ruler while masking the systematic violence that brought him power. Those he spared were politically useful. Those he destroyed were obstacles. Rome itself tried to forget the worst of these crimes. Statues don't show burned villages. Triumphs don't display severed hands. Histories written under emperors descended from Caesar had little incentive to dwell on atrocities. The narrative became one of destiny, greatness, and necessary force. Yet echoes of these actions remained. Some Romans feared Caesar not just because he wanted power, but because they knew what he was capable of. They had seen Gaul. They had heard the stories. A man who could do that abroad could do worse at home. When senators raised their knives on the Ides of March, they claimed to be saving the Republic from tyranny. Whether that was true or self-serving, fear played its role. Julius Caesar was a product of his time, but also an extreme example of it. Many Roman generals were brutal. Few were as successful, as systematic, or as unapologetic. His own writings, meant to glorify his campaigns, inadvertently reveal the scale of suffering inflicted. Behind the calm, logical prose lies a trail of devastation. This doesn't mean Caesar was uniquely evil in a modern sense. Ancient warfare was merciless by default. But understanding his savagery matters because it strips away the myth and shows the cost of empire. Rome's greatness was built on conquered lands, broken peoples, and normalized violence. Caesar was simply the most famous architect of that system. When we remember Julius Caesar today, we often focus on his death, his ambition, his genius. Rarely do we pause to think of the countless unnamed victims of his rise. The villages erased from maps. The children sold into slavery. The hands cut off to serve as warnings. Rome tried to forget them, because remembering would mean questioning the foundations of its power. History is not just what is celebrated, but what is buried. And beneath the marble image of Julius Caesar lies a story written in blood, one that reminds us that greatness and savagery have often walked side by side. If this story made you see the Roman world differently, stay with us, because there are many more truths history tried to hide, and we're here to bring them into the light.